state of our union is strong.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Excellencies, I address you today with a deep sense of concern over the evolving situation in Israel and Palestine. We are at a watershed moment. Israel's threat to annex parts of the occupied West Bank has alarmed Palestinians, many Israelis, and the broader international community. If implemented, annexation would constitute the most serious violation of international law, grievously harm the prospect of a two-state solution, and undercut the possibilities of a renewal of negotiations. I call on the Israeli government to abandon its annexation plans. The Palestinian leadership has reacted by considering itself absolved of all bilateral agreements with Israel and the United States. Increased economic fragility as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, reduced donor support, and the recent Palestinian decision to stop accepting clearance revenues that Israel collects on behalf of the Palestinian Authority risk increasing the hardship of the Palestinian people. As I said in February, when I spoke before you and President Abbas in the Council, you have my full commitment to continue supporting Palestinians and Israelis to resolve the conflict and end the occupation in line with international law, relevant United Nations resolutions, and bilateral agreements. The goal is achieving the vision of two states, Israel and an independent, democratic, contiguous, sovereign and viable Palestinian state, living side by side in peace and security within secure and recognized borders based on the pre-1967 borders, with Jerusalem as the capital of both states. I will continue to consistently speak out against any unilateral steps that would undermine peace and the chances for resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict through meaningful negotiations. Such actions also further hamper efforts to advance regional peace and to maintain international peace and security. I urge Israeli and Palestinian leaders to commit to meaningful dialogue with the support of the international community. I encourage regional and international supporters of the two-state solution to help bring the parties back to a path towards a negotiated, peaceful settlement. I call on fellow members of the Middle East Quartet to take up our mandate mediation role and find a mutually agreeable framework for the parties to re-engage without preconditions with us and other key states. Leaders must act wisely and swiftly and demonstrate the will to advance the goal of a just and lasting peace.
Supposedly, the Revolution of God is a group of high-ranking world leaders with plans for a new world order. But we've not been able to confirm or deny the validity of their existence.
Members of the Security Council, Secretary General Guterres, I'm devoting my regular briefing on the situation in the Middle East to the 14th report on the implementation of Security Council Resolution 2334. The written report you have already received, and it covers the period from the 21st of March to the 4th of June this year. Before turning to developments that have occurred since the written report, I would like to reiterate the Secretary General's grave concern over the continuing threat of Israeli annexation of parts of the occupied West Bank, a process officials have said could begin in weeks. Deliberations over this move have brought this long-standing conflict to a critical juncture. Annexation could irrevocably alter the nature of Israeli-Palestinian relations. It risks upending more than a quarter of a century of international efforts in support of a future viable Palestinian state living in peace, security, and mutual recognition with the State of Israel. I encourage Member States to support the agency to ensure its operations can continue throughout 2020.
Questa settimana il Consiglio di sicurezza delle Nazioni Unite ha adottato una risoluzione che predispone alcune misure per affrontare le devastanti conseguenze del virus Covid-19, particolarmente per le zone già teatro dei conflitti. È lodevole la richiesta di un cessate il fuoco globale e immediato, che permetterebbe la pace e la sicurezza indispensabile per fornire l'assistenza umanitaria così urgentemente necessaria. Auspico che tale decisione venga attuata effettivamente e tempestivamente per il bene di tante persone che stanno soffrendo. Possa questa risoluzione del Consiglio di sicurezza diventare un primo passo coraggioso per il futuro di pace.
The Palestinians oppose Israel unilaterally annexing any part of the West Bank, and they say the world backs them on this. Dozens of foreign diplomats are present in Jericho to hear the UN Middle East coordinator Nikolai Mladenov greet the, quote, free people of Palestine and denounce Israel's annexation plans.
It is not just against international law, but if it happens, it may kill the very idea that peace and statehood for the Palestinian people can be achieved through negotiations.
Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the Vatican Secretary of State, met with the United States and Israel ambassadors to the Holy See to discuss the issue. Joining us now from Rome is Courtney Mahrez, Rome correspondent for Catholic News Agency, who has been following this story for us. Courtney, welcome back. Good to see you.
Thank you, Tracy.
So, Courtney, do we know what was discussed in that meeting among Cardinal Parolin and the U.S. and Israel ambassadors to the Holy See?
The Vatican Secretary of State met with the U.S. ambassadors ahead of the highly anticipated July 1st date to express his concern that Israelis' potential unilateral actions could jeopardize the peace process between the Israelis and the Palestinians. He also expressed concern of its potential repercussions for the rest of the Middle East. Now, the Cardinal was not the only one to express such concern. The United Nations, the European Union, and UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson each issued strong statements urging Israel to call off its annexation plans, saying that they violated international law. Ultimately, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced yesterday that the plans to annex parts of the West Bank have been delayed. The Prime Minister's office said discussions with Americans have been taking place this week and further discussions are planned.
Courtney, do you know, has the U.S. Embassy to the Holy See said anything about the meeting?
I actually spoke with the representative from the U.S. Embassy to the Holy See today, who told me that the U.S. ambassador said the meeting was productive and covered a range of issues, including their common goal for peace in the Middle East. Now, it's important to note that the Vatican Secretary of State met with both the U.S. ambassador and the Israeli ambassador because the Americans are playing a key role in Israel's decision. If the Israeli annexation of the West Bank does go forward sometime in the future, Israel will be looking to the U.S. for support and recognition of the areas that would be annexed, which could be up to 30% of the territory.
Courtney, we only have about a minute or so left, but I do want to get to this last question. Can you talk about the Vatican's stance on the dispute between Israel and the Palestinian territory?
The Holy See has reaffirmed its support for a two-state solution repeatedly this year amid these ongoing debates. In the most recent Vatican statement issued this week, the Holy See reaffirmed its support for the internationally recognized borders, saying both Israel and Palestine deserve a right to exist in peace and security. The Vatican Secretary of State also appealed to Israel and the U.S. to do everything possible to reopen direct negotiations with Palestine, citing Pope Francis's prayer for peace in the Middle East and the Holy Land, in which he urged leaders to say yes to dialogue and no to violence.
Who are the Watchers?
You're not ready for that answer.
I've heard that name before. It's come up before.
We are true believers.
Believers in what?
There are events coming into play right now, here in the Holy Land and around the world. This world is dying. Business markets are collapsing. Banks are disappearing into the night. Nations are in financial ruin. And as people, we are morally bankrupt.
What does that have to do with Mark?
Your husband knew all this. He was helping us.
Helping with what?
Was wrong, Michael. You don't need a pandemic for people to take the vaccine. You just need the fear of a pandemic.
This is the mission which Pope Francis gave us when he confirmed the universal apostolic preferences. These were the fruit of a spirit-led discernment by the universal apostolic body. Illuminated by them, we put into practice the mission of reconciliation and justice to which the 36th General Congregation invites us. The crisis is showing us that we are one humanity. Every human being, every people, each culture is part of this one varied, rich, and interdependent humanity. It is showing us that there is no difference in age, race, religion, or social status when we are one humanity. Starting by putting what we ourselves want in a second place and accepting the measures and sacrifices that allow us to contribute to the good of all. God is a tricky word because of which God are we talking about? Now, I have several gods in our word. So, if we are talking about the God of Jesus Christ, or the God that Jesus Christ revealed us, so we have to see Jesus Christ. And how is the most profound and deep image of God that Jesus gives us? The cross. Jesus in cross. Jesus given His life for the life of us. There is God. If we are able to really contemplate and get touched by the contemplation of Jesus in cross, we will find the crucified people today. The crucified of this moment of the pandemic and the injustice of the world. And we will find God. God is there. God is asking us to do something, to give our life so that people can have life.
Thank you.
People, humanity is only one humanity. All of us are loved by God. And we are loving them with the love of God. And we have to be really near there. We accompany their life as they are. We don't make differences. So I think but the way we show the path to God is to be just aside the people, really in touch, loving them.
Do you have suggestions to help us turn this crisis into permanent, not temporary and reactionary changes?
Really don't forget that this is not also an accident. It's not an accident, the COVID-19. the fruit of a way of how human beings has understand and have made their own relationship, and is a confirmation of our mission to collaborate, to contribute in the change of this world. And I think we can show the people through reflecting about the COVID-19, the fragility of the world we have created, no? and how we need really to get together so we can go in another way. I don't think so that after the crisis things are going to change like this. No? There are so many interests behind this, and so many, we are so used to the West. We are dreaming to come back to our normality. No? We are dreaming to just live as we were before the virus came to our life. But that's the great temptation. So to take an opportunity of this crisis is to be aware that something has to change, because really we are in a very fragile structure of human relationship and life. So don't forget this crisis. Not just, okay, that was a bad night, a nightmare. No, and we are awake again, and we are again in our life as before. No, we have to take the lesson that if we don't change after this, the next one will be worse.
We have fabricated a worldwide flu scare. We are about to manufacture enough vaccine to inoculate the planet.
Unemployment is the lowest in history. Poverty has been eradicated. Crime is non-existent. Let us give thanks. Let us give thanks. Give thanks. Give thanks. Give thanks. Give thanks. Give thanks. Give thanks.
Be strong in the Lord and in His mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you have done everything, to stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. And pray in the Spirit on all occasions, with all kinds of prayers and requests. With this in mind, be alert, and always keep on praying for all the Lord's people.